What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another NBA video to go over with you guys, this time actually revolving around RJ Hampton and the New York Knicks. Some news that I've been kind of pretty excited to share with you guys, for those of you who haven't heard, and yeah, some news that I was kind of waiting to see if it was going to potentially happen. And yeah, this is all being reported by Mark Berman, who I believe is actually being reported a couple of New York Knicks stuff that we've covered on the channel recently. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the reports that we've been seeing kind of recently with many different players such as LaMelo Ball, etc. But it's currently being reported that RJ Hampton has caught the New York Knicks' eye. In other news, the New York Knicks are interested in RJ Hampton. Now, the reason I think this is so cool is, for those of you who haven't heard, there is currently a big rumor that is going around that the New York Knicks will actually look to try and trade for Chris Paul. Obviously, I think if the Knicks got Chris Paul, that would be pretty cool in my opinion. I'm not going to lie. I think that he would be the perfect player for them. You know, I've talked about it in videos before. I think they need to build up a culture, and Chris Paul is definitely one of those players to kind of build that culture. And I don't think he would be that hard of a player to kind of, you know, try and get. There's also rumors that the Knicks are interested in LaMelo Ball, which again I've talked about. I don't necessarily know if I would like the partnering of LaMelo Ball and Chris Paul, but what I would really like, I think, would be a partnering potentially of RJ Hampton and Chris Paul. Now, I'll get into more of that in a little bit of a second. But obviously, yeah, there's been so much Knicks news recently. I mean, Victor Oladipo as well, the LaMelo Ball stuff, the Chris Paul stuff. It's all literally happening. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely do it. Because, yeah, again, a lot of NBA news and content is all coming out. And, yeah, there's a lot more that is being shared, especially with the NBA expected to, you know, come back very soon. But the reason I kind of like this RJ Hampton one is because the Knicks aren't guaranteed to get a top 5 pick. Look, I believe they actually finished 6th on the lottery odds or something like that, which means they could possibly fall down to like pick 8. They could get into the top 5. Who really knows? But I honestly think RJ Hampton is going to be a player that goes from like pick 10 to 16. So I think it would be kind of cool if the Knicks were actually able to trade for Chris Paul. Let's just say they gave up maybe Kevin Knox, that Dallas pick, and maybe who knows what other piece it would be. That's kind of the big rumor that's been, you know, floating around with Chris Paul recently. Then I think it would be cool for them to, let's just say they landed maybe the 6th pick, which is, you know, their lottery odds on what they have right now. Let's just say maybe they actually traded down, similar to what Minnesota and Phoenix did, where they, you know, I think it was Minnesota traded away Dario Saric and pick 11 or something like that for pick 6. Which, again, who really knows who's won that trade yet? Because, again, we don't really know how Jarrett Culver's really going to do. He's been alright so far, but I think the Knicks could actually do a similar case to that. For example, if a team wants to move into the top 6, I think they should definitely look to maybe trade that pick if they do get Chris Paul. For example, a team maybe like the Charlotte Hornets or Washington Wizards, etc., the Chicago Bulls, who may want to play like Danny Avdija, if they fall down in the draft lottery, I think it would be actually kind of interesting for them to maybe, let's just say the Chicago Bulls had pick 11 or something, or yeah, we'll just say pick 11 or pick 10, which again is what they could possibly have. I honestly think they may get a bit of a higher pick than that, but right now I believe they actually have the lottery odds for pick 7. But let's just say they fall down to, you know, 9 or something, which who knows, that could literally happen. The draft lottery is that crazy at the moment. But if they want to move up, I think it would be kind of interesting for the Knicks to trade away that pick to a team and then maybe get a couple pieces in. For example, a player like Dario Saric, which was traded in a package similar to this last season or last draft, and then potentially go on and select RJ Hampton. Now, the reason I think RJ Hampton would be kind of cool for the New York Knicks is because he is a pretty average, I'd say he's a pretty average defender, maybe even slightly above average. He actually played really good in his season with New Zealand. I mean, pretty good for a 19-year-old. And yeah, I believe actually, you know, he put up a decent amount of points. He's not exactly known for that playmaking, which is something he may want to improve. But, you know, he has a decent ability. He's working on his shot. He does just look like an overall decent point guard. I wouldn't say he necessarily specializes at too many things here and there. But I think if you were to partner him up with Chris Paul and maybe he played, you know, let's just say they took him at pick 12 or something like that. Maybe he played 20 minutes or so a night. he could potentially play that shooting guard position as well with Chris Paul, because he is 196 centimeters. He's 6'5", so he definitely has the height to play that shooting guard position. And yeah, again, possibly needs to work on defense, but of course that will eventually come, and that's, yeah, it's gonna go there. So he actually played 15 games for New Zealand. Played 12 games, averaged 20, started 12, sorry, averaged 20.6 minutes per game, 29.5% from 3, and then had 3.9 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and 8.8 points per game, which is actually pretty decent numbers considering he was an 18/19-year-old playing in a league with, you know, fully grown players that are very good. I mean, there are some really good players in the NBL, like, you know, Bryce Cotton, Andrew Bogut, Casper Ware, etc., and more will possibly come, like Nick Young, and he had LaMelo Ball, again, Bryce Cotton, as I just said. There are so many players that he had to compete with, and he actually did relatively good. So I think he would be kind of an interesting choice for the New York Knicks to go with. Of course, I think it would be better for them to maybe get LaMelo Ball. I still don't know how I really feel about it. I think I'm kind of getting more on the side of, yeah, if they had LaMelo Ball and Chris Paul, that would actually kind of be very cool. But again, it just really depends on how you see it. I think they'd have to start both of them. Would they start RJ Hampton with Chris Paul? I don't think so. I think RJ Hampton for his first season would be like that, you know, 8 to 6 man on the rotation, playing 15 to 25 minutes per game. I think that's what he would potentially see. Of course, he's a talented guard, and all this type of stuff. But again, if they were to draft a player like RJ Hampton, he is kind of, I'd say he's just a better version of Dennis Smith Jr. at this point. Of course, Smith Jr. has, you know, he's a good dunker and all this type of stuff, but I think that if they were to get RJ Hampton, that's just pretty much replacing Dennis Smith Jr. at this point, so there's really no point for Dennis Smith Jr. But again, I think RJ Hampton would be a interesting decision. I think I could definitely see that potentially happening, especially if the Knicks want to trade down, or maybe they even fall down and just want to take him at maybe reach a little bit and get him at pick 8. Who really knows? I'm not exactly too sure where teams rank RJ Hampton. I believe he's like pick 10 to 16, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks fell down at like 8 or 9 or something like that, and pretty much just said, well, stuff it. Let's just draft RJ Hampton. Or if they, you know, if they couldn't trade down. But again, there are going to be other point guards such as LaMelo Ball, Theo Maledon, Cole Anthony, etc. that they're all going to be interested in. And of course, Chris Paul. And there's going to be other players at shooting guard they're going to be interested in, such as Victor Oladipo, which again, we've already had confirmed sources, all of this type of stuff about these. So if you guys would like to go check out my Chris Paul and Victor Oladipo and, you know, LaMelo Ball Knicks videos, I definitely recommend go checking them out. You know, again, there's a lot more evidence to all this type of stuff, a lot more opinions on what the New York Knicks should potentially do. And of course, the RJ Hampton theory on what's really going to be happening with him, I think is going to be a really bit of an interesting one on what team he's going to be going to. I think there's so many teams that could use a guard like him to play that 6th to 8th man on the rotation type of spot for his first couple of seasons. Maybe could develop into a starter. Who really knows? But again, I guess we'll have to wait and see on what the New York Knicks potentially decide to do. But as I was saying, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my gaming channel, MIRL/long channel. Links for them are in the description down below. And check out my podcast as well if you haven't already. Links for them will also be in the description down below. But as I was saying, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.